And welcome to Brainstorming America. I'm Ken Rollins. I'm here with John Merrill, co-host, and we got good to see you, brother.
Hey, Ken.
Come up here he drove all the way from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, T-Town. What'd you say it was? I said T-Town, you said
City of Champions.
City of Champions. Champion must be football or something. They have football down there?
Football, basketball, women's basketball, gymnastics, softball, baseball.
I see you at all them things. Do you call games or something?
I don't announce them, no, sir. We just go as fans. I only announce at Hillcrest High School.
I bet they say, in the building tonight, Secretary of State John Merrill. I can just hear him. But we talked about the immigration bill is in trouble. And there's been those millions that's come in here, the 8, 10 million, how many million we got illegals? What do you think they let them in for? Do you have any idea why a president would allow?
Well, obviously, one of the things that the Democrats have done is they've attempted to allow these illegal aliens to come in because they believe that once they start receiving the governmental services that are provided to them upon request, that they will become more in line with the Democratic Party, and then they will become registered voters, and then they will continue to vote for the largesse that they're receiving, and so they will become
Democratic voters.
Well, obviously Democratic voters, but they'll have to do that to continue to get the benefits that they've been receiving in the past.
Bingo. There's no way that with these guys that stand on the other side of the line from Venezuela and Ecuador and all these places that's yelling, hey, Joe Biden, my friend Joe Biden, they're not going to come across here and vote for Donald Trump. That's always a Democratic vote when they come through that door. So you folks out there watching this, always remember, ask yourself, why would anybody that loves this country would allow people to come across their border? No other country will do this. You try to go into Syria or go into Ecuador or Venezuela and try to do some of the things they're doing here, forget you. You're gone. You never hear from you. So this is what it's all about, building their base, getting them 8,000, 10,000 more Democratic votes to vote for their stupid stuff that they do that diminishes this country. It's really, really bad. And I tell you that the city of New York just put out $53 million for they were what do you call it? Sanctuary
cities. Yes, sir.
So they invited them in. Now they don't know what to do with them, and it's eating up all of the homeless, the normal homeless around New York, and it's eating up the poor people that they have to feed with the Medicaid type people. Everything is being taken away from the people in New York by the people that's come in illegally. And I don't know how that happened, John. How does somebody drive cars and they give them little motorbikes to ride around to get around town? Give it to them. They give them a cell phone.
Unbelievable.
And $1,500 to, hey, y'all be nice, I'll give you $1,500 more. I mean, where does that come from? It's just frustrating to me. If it sounds like I'm frustrated, I am.
Well, and justifiably so.
Yeah. Well, how you going to fix it?
We're going to continue to try to fix it. We're going to start with the primary results, and then we're going to continue through the general election in November to see if we can't get some new folks in D.C. to address the concerns that we have and that so many of our viewers have all across the great state of Alabama.
Well, are you going to be, what's your position in Donald Trump's? Has he told you yet?
No, and I'm not sure.
You're not going to ask, are you?
No, sir, but I will do whatever the president wants me to do in order to help the country, and you know that.
Yeah, if he asked me to be on his committee, to work for him, I would never, ever say, what am I going to be doing? I would just wait for that letter to come.
That's right.
Because I'm sure he'd have something for me to do. I don't want to press him, but I always thought you would make one heck of a Secretary of State. for the United States. And can I put you down for that?
Well, you're kind to even say so.
No, I'm serious.
But of course, that position is one of the most important positions in our nation's history. I don't know that I'm the most qualified person for that role, but any role that the president thinks that I might be able to fill for him is certainly one that I would be honored to serve in, because I know that he has the best interest of our nation in mind when he's selecting people to work for him
Well, the reason
in
I
that
say
cabinet.
you was voted by your peers to be the Secretary of State president of that organization, were
Yes,
you
sir.
not?
Yes, sir.
Then I would take that into consideration, that nationwide, on a nationwide scale, I got a guy here that has served at a national position. He knows Washington, D.C., and he knows where the bodies are hid, so to speak, knows how it works. So I know if you ever could get into national and do 1/3 of what you did in the state of Alabama, we'd be on high cotton.
Well, you're kind to say that.
You know what high cotton is? Huh?
Yes, sir.
I like high cotton. Okay. Did you notice, and I know you you notice Budweiser decided to change their cover of their...
My friend, I think it's a little too late for our friends from Budweiser. Anheuser-Busch, St. Louis, Missouri.
Horses out of the barn, I think.
Yes, sir.
But they changed it.
Yes, sir.
Which tells me what?
Well, it tells me some people lost their jobs because the political campaign that they had before in trying to promote a certain philosophy and certain values to a constituency is only interested in drinking beer. And when you do that, that's going to cause a big problem for you.
Go
but
woke,
we know
you what?
You go woke, you go broke. But that's not going to cause a problem for you, because we know you're not woke. You are truly awakened. That's why you're joining us for the 53rd episode of Brainstorming America. We'll see you right back in just a minute. Thanks for joining us again after the break. Ken Rollins reminded me as we went into the break that this is not the 53rd episode of Brainstorming America. It's only the 52nd episode of Brainstorming America. And this is not the first time I've ever tried to get ahead of myself, but it is the first time today. So we're delighted that you've chosen to come back and join us for the second segment of the 52nd episode of Brainstorming America. Ken?
Don't let that happen again.
No, sir.
Hey, you notice that, did you watch the part where the Supreme Court took the Donald Trump case from Colorado
Yes, sir.
about removing him from the ballot?
Yes, sir.
And that was a Secretary of State thing, wasn't it?
That's right. Jenna Griswold, who is the very unable secretary in Colorado, was the one that started that.
Just to say that you can take a person who has met all the criteria
That's correct.
and who is in the running for the #1 position and remove him or her from the ballot. You, as a Secretary of State in the past, what do you think that came from? Did they?
Well, I can tell you exactly where it came from, and I think it's also important to remember that she was followed very closely by her friend Shanna Bellows, who is the Secretary in Maine. It's a major problem when we have people in elected or appointed positions. Shanna is appointed by the legislature in the state of Maine. Jenna was elected statewide by the people in Colorado. But when an individual who is in an office like the one they hold in their state, like the one I held for 8 years in our state, when that individual tries to advance their personal political agenda, their personal political philosophy, and implore that so that the people that live in that particular jurisdiction are negatively impacted if they don't agree with them, then that's a problem for all of us in this constitutional republic. What we need is people who are going to be in those positions who will ensure that each and every person's voice is going to be heard and each and every person's vote is going to be counted, not to advance one political philosophy or advance one political agenda over another.
I'm thinking about something else that we're looking at too that worries me or bothers me. We got Mr. Jones here on one of our viewers that's got a machine shop, and if he violates something, he's going to be punished by the law as it's written, hopefully. And we got two tiers of the legal system in America now. We got one for politics, and then we got one for the rest of it. But the classification papers situation for you folks out there, You know about the Mar-a-Lago where they came down there and asked Trump for his papers that he had taken. Now, as a president, he can declassify any papers that he had. But they asked him to let him look at the papers that he had taken from his office down there. He had them put in a place that was locked. They asked him to put more locks on there, and he did. He locked it up just like they told him to. And then they came back with guns a-blazing, a raid with a SWAT team and whatever, and blocked the highways just to come back and show off and take some of the material he had. With Joe Biden, he had them in 4 different places, not just one place. He had his everywhere you can hang them, including a garage where he kept his Corvette, and you can see them on the TV screen. You could see them in boxes and torn boxes, and these were classified. One of them in particular was a message discussion of Afghanistan between him and Obama. This was highly classified. He says it wasn't, but they say it had the red tape. It had all the markings of top secret. This is stuff you don't want to get in the hands of the enemy. To find out that a president, a vice president were discussing this about bin Laden, how their methods and sources, how they would go about taking out a leader, is very important to the other bin Ladens of the world.
That's correct.
So Joe Biden had a lot of material in there, but he was too old and feeble to be prosecuted. I have never, and you as Secretary of State, have you ever heard of somebody getting off with something bad like that?
No, especially
Because
when
they're
that
old and
person
feeble?
is still holding the office of the highest elected
Absolutely.
position in the United States of America.
Today, as we
That's
sit here.
correct.
Well, I'm old and feeble, and I ain't thinking about breaking no laws, but I'm just thinking that's a scary situation that was allowed to happen.
Very scary.
And I hope it's not over with. But the material that he had was always okay because he's old and feeble. But he still had material that could compromise people in the future if they were dealing with another. And there's going to be another bin Laden, and probably sooner. Well, they'll all come across the border, and they'll say we'll have one sooner than later. So,
That's right.
we was on something a while ago. I'm going to go back to it. Taylor Swift.
Yes, sir.
This is funny. Do you know that the viewership on NBC increased $13.3 million because of Taylor Swift?
That was the highest watched program in the history of television.
Because of her, a lot of it.
No, most of it was
Yeah.
because of her.
Yeah.
Because if you remove her as the it factor from the equation, then you'll find that it was just another important football game that was being shown on national TV, but the viewership would not have been what it was. There are people watching the Super Bowl and watching
That never
football
watched
games
it.
that the Chiefs are playing now because of Taylor Swift.
Absolutely. Still today.
Yes, sir.
But they was at the table or in the living room, you'd normally see Daddy sitting there with a remote. In this case, it was Daddy and the 2 boys and the girl and Mama. It had more viewers. Instead of having one out of that house, it had 6 people, but Daddy still had a remote, but they were all watching.
That's right.
And
And
so
I know that they were very thankful for their viewers, but we're more thankful for our viewers because we're so appreciative of you taking your time each and every week to be with us. So we'll be back in just a moment for the final segment of the 52nd episode of Brainstorming America.
Welcome back to Brainstorming America. I'm Ken Rollins, and I'm here with John Merrill. John, I want to hit some subjects before we get off of here that I wanted to talk about. And I talked about the viewership going up on just now with Taylor Swift. It's amazing how they can do that. And you remind me they will still do it now after the Super Bowl is over. They still got viewers to NBC as a result of that. It's amazing. And I'm glad for them that they do something. I'd rather watch that than some of the other stuff that they're watching. A lady, I think she's a congresswoman with California, Bass, you know what I'm talking about. She's running with Adam Schiff and all them for the state senate, for the senator job that Dianne Feinstein left.
That's right, when she passed.
Well, Senator Bass proposed last week a $50 an hour minimum wage. That's what I said. $50.
And you know, it's truly spoken by someone who's never had to sign the front of a paycheck.
Thank you. And you think about that when even in New York, a cup of coffee is $7, you know. And I think yesterday, I mean, in my hometown right here, everything's going so crazy. 3 pieces of chicken twice, the 6 pieces of chicken, 2 macaroni and cheese, $29.67. Yes, sir. Right outside the door from where we are. Yes, sir. $29 in it. Popeyes. You know, that's like that.
That made your eyes pop out.
You
didn't
remember?
it?
Yeah, you remember when Hurricane Katrina came through Louisiana?
Yes, sir.
They went back there about a year later, checking to see how things were recouping. And one of the cameramen, NBC, asked a lady standing there, said, "How are things going?" And she said, "Oh, they're doing good." And said, and there's a black lady that had come around from the corner, and she was just picking up on this conversation. She decided to join it. And they said, "Well, how are you doing, ma'am?" She said, "Well, we're doing pretty good." They said, "Well, how you doing in the school?" "Oh, they're doing back to school, Bill built." So what about the churches? She said, "I don't know, we get our chicken from Popeyes." And if they got a church's chicken near you, you'll get that joke. But she had no idea how Popeyes was doing. I mean, the church's chicken was doing. The other thing I want to get covered for you, and it's a very serious thing, is Joe Biden has turned, our president has turned against the state of Israel in that war over there, and they're fighting for their life, their whole livelihood. Israel is to be abolished if Hamas has their chance. And right now, and then Biden is moving and they said, "What you need to do, you just went a little bit overboard. You're going overboard the way you're killing those enemies. You need to kill them a little bit easier or whatever." I have no idea what he's talking about.
And he doesn't either.
No.
And that's a major problem for us.
So, but that sends a signal to Europe and all the other places that America is not fully supporting Israel. And then there are kids in the street yelling anti-Semitic things against Israel. Kids can't go into school and say, I'm Israeli, I'm from Israel. They can't even give their nationality because they're afraid of it, because the other kids will get on them and stuff. It's just, what that man is doing with this thing in Israel, people need to pay attention, because when our president turns against the state of Israel that we've supported all these years, and to put them, you know, you're putting a ball and chain around their leg and making them fight a war, one of the worst, most cruel wars than anything that's happening with ISIS, you know, where they're beheading people. That's a cold, cruel bunch of people. And you can't just, "Oh, I want this bullet to just bounce off of you. I don't want," no, I want that bullet to blow you to kingdom come, what I want. And that's what they need to do. And he's turning America against Israel. I don't like that.
And he's dividing America with itself, because people that understand our history, they know that we've always been strong supporters of Israel. The Bible tells us that those that support Israel will be honored in the Lord's eyes. And we know that America has always done so since it became a nation state in the 1940s. And we need to continue to be that way, not just in the Oval Office, but also in the United States Senate and the United States Congress, and in each one of the 50 states in the Union.
As I pulled into the studio today, they had announced that Joe Biden's brother, the one that was involved with Hunter and all of them in the Chinese deal, was entering the Capitol for testimony today behind closed doors about, these were people that had no background of being carpenters, electricians. They had no skills in real estate. They had no skills whatsoever. But yet, there's checks for $200 million. There's checks to Jim Biden from him to Joe Biden for $200,000. We see these are Bobulinski brought the checks in. These are actual what our president has done. He has, in my opinion, he's compromised himself with China. He's compromised himself with Ukraine. One of the reasons he wants to do Ukraine, remember what he said when he made sure that we got that prosecutor removed over there? He bragged about it. He held back on the money. What is that called? What's that called when you bribe somebody?
A quid pro quo.
Quid pro quo.
Yes, sir.
They blamed Donald Trump for it, but here he was one all the time. Then I always heard in my life, if you really a crook wants to win his argument, just point the finger over there. Get them away from you. Don't let the light shine on you. Put it on somebody else. But this is really sad. As we see here today, he's testifying. Don't know what he's saying, but the whole Biden family, including the grandchildren can't even write. They were writing checks, and this is such a corrupt situation. And I think the American people are eventually going to see it. I hope they do.
Well, if they don't, then the way that we know our country to be today, in a short order, we will not know it to be that way in the future. We've already seen so many changes that have occurred over the years, and very few of them have been positive when it comes to our governance or self-governance. And you talked about hearing from the people. One of the things that we know is that he will be hearing from the people in November. And we're always excited to hear from you. And we're just delighted that you chose to join us again this week for the 52nd episode of Brainstorming America. We'll see you next week. Take care until then.